little print.
Yes, that's right.
Although one of us,
I had to do it on my computer so I could, so I could enlarge it. But then I had to keep going across. It was.
I couldn't find my
tough.
glasses. So I've got this then, which kind of.
Yeah.
oh yeah, I can read that.
Okay, so it being 7 o'clock, Vice Chair.
Abington Zoning Board of Appeals will hold a public hearing on Thursday, February 7th, 2019, 7 o'clock. Town Hall, 500 Glenwood's Way. First thing on the agenda is old and new business. First item is the approval of payment of the Tetra Tech invoice.
Second.
Need a motion on that?
Second.
Sure. I'll make a motion to approve the Tetra Tech invoice that was submitted
I think we received it January 14th,
January 14, 2018.
19.
Excuse me. And just for the record, this is from funds that were deposited by the petitioner with the town. This is not coming out of town funds.
Correct.
I will second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Second on the agenda is approval of minutes. Excuse me. First is approval of the minutes from September 20th. Voting members were Mr. Negrelli, myself, Mr. Leverell, Mr. Bergen, and Mr. Burbine. We're all in attendance.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from the September 20th, 2018 meeting.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Second is the approval of the minutes from the meeting of November 1st, 2018.
And the members? Same?
Members were Mr. Negrelli, Mr. Leverell, Mr. Bergen, and Mr. Burbine.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from the November 1st, 2018 meeting.
I second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Third is the meeting minutes from December 6th, 2018. Mr. Negrelli, Mr. Mullen, Mr. Leverell, and Mr. Bergen were in attendance.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from the December 6th, 2018 meeting.
Second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
And finally is the minutes from January 17th, 2019. Mr. Negrelli, Mr. Burbine were in attendance.
I'll second that. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye?
Present.
Okay, sorry about that, we just had to clean up some things we gotta take care of there.
It being 7 p.m., Abington Zoning Board of Appeals will hear the continued petition of Abington Investments LLC, 245 Central Street, Abington, for the comprehensive permit under MGL Chapter 40B. For relief from the following: 175-201A and J uses, 175-29 dimensional and density regulations, 175-43A 1A, 175-43 2A, 175-50B and C, 175-52G, parking and loading requirements, 175-31, 175-32A, B, C, D, E, multifamily use, 175-34, earth removal, 175-37, transit-oriented development, 175-66, buffer strip, 175-67.1, outdoor lighting, for 144 rental units known as Abington Senior Housing at 1015 Plymouth Street. The property is located on Assessors Map 17 and 18, lots 23 and 6 in the R30 zone.
Okay, now that we're all done with that, we start our meeting.
For the record, Dan Bailey, counsel for the applicant. we're open to how we proceed on this tonight, but what we're here tonight to do is to respond to the peer review letter from Tetra Tech. I know that materials have been submitted, and our project engineer, he's here next to me, Sean Hardy. I suggest that the easiest and way to deal with this is to literally march through each comment one by one. Some will go faster than others, but unless the board or Attorney Questle have another way of doing it, that's usually the way we do these.
I think it's probably a good idea. The board agree?
Yep.
Sure.
Okay, so
We'll just get set here with this, just gotta make sure you have the right paperwork right here. Okay,
Are you using,
which one are you
in
using?
essence, this?
we're working off of the spreadsheet.
Okay.
That's what you,
The only thing I can say to that
This
is
one here.
the spreadsheet came after my comment letter was
Yeah.
issued, so I'm sure it's not going to be an issue, just for clarification.
Yeah, just
excuse me, did you get to see this before?
I got it, and Sean and I talked. I haven't reviewed every line item in it, so I'm sure it's not going to be anything that we can't handle tonight.
Okay. I
and
see you did go see the neighbors. Talk to the neighbors.
yes, and Glenn LaPointe can speak to that
Okay.
if you want to hear on that. The way the spreadsheet is set up is the first column is Tetra Tech's original letter from November, December, whenever it was. The second column is the Tetra Tech update letter, which was January 30th. And then the third column is the comments from Sean, which are dated January 30th in his letter. So I'm actually going to suggest that Sean and I change places so that he's close to the microphone. I'm not going to try and play engineer here. I'm always accusing the engineers of playing lawyer. So. Excuse me, I'm just setting up the plans.
Okay,
So
yeah.
everybody can see them.
Very good.
So should I just like read the initial comment and then?
Sure, go right
Or,
Well, why don't I, so comment one was originally, as everybody understands, this road that comes into the site is a pretty important road.
Right.
And I've been out there, and it's a pretty narrow section.
Mhm.
So what we want to do is make sure that the initial submittal didn't really have any detail at all on the road. The second submittal has a little bit more detail. Our concern now is there's just a kind of a couple constructability issues that we see. The road is a bit narrow for a primary access road. So we'd probably like to get some input from the fire chief as to how he feels about it, and then have the board weigh in on how they feel about it. So right now, the road is shown at 22 feet wide curb to curb. It's got a 4-foot sidewalk on one side, and it's got a guardrail on the other. It's got a guardrail outside the sidewalk as well, but if you can visualize, the guardrail right now, face of guardrail is at face of curb. So typically, your guardrail is offset from the curb, so you can hit the curb first before hitting the guardrail. In this case, because of the constrained area between the different wetlands, they're trying to be efficient with their layout, but it does result in a kind of a tight configuration, in our opinion.
and, yeah, so the response, and a few of these I think we're going to probably touch on a few times, but the 22-foot wide is the required under the rules and regulations of the planning board for a roadway, so that's why we held that. And as far as the retaining wall, we acknowledge we're light a little bit on the details of it, but we have looked at different alternatives. It's going to require a structural design, and this process isn't really the time for that. It's going to need some geotechs and things like that, but we have examined different types of walls, ranging anywhere from sheet pile to a poured concrete wall with the footing that is underneath it. So we do have a file going of those, so the constructability-wise, we're confident. We also know that the guardrail is going to be probably an integral part of any wall that's built, and that would be part of the structural design, how that would be affixed to it. so we feel as though we can accommodate it. The other thing, I know there was comment about getting close to the 5,000 square foot threshold that puts you in a different level of permitting as far as the wetlands go. As it is now, we have the ability to go at least a foot wider if needed, and we would still be under that 5,000 square foot. Trying to hold that in reserve, knowing that some of those temporary disturbances, things like that, as we head into the wetlands permitting. But like I said, as it is now, and additionally, you know, one of the, you can see some of the revisions were based on fire department comments. So the fire department's seen it. I mean, I don't want to speak for them, but my understanding was that they don't have concerns about access to this site. The only concern that they did have was, and why we changed the layout up closer to the buildings. They wanted a larger area in front of the two buildings that they could accommodate a turnaround, and if you see that on the page, is like a dashed line, that's that radius of a circle that the fire chief wanted to have to get vehicles in and out of that particular area. So that, to us, was their only concern regarding access, and we feel as though we've met it.
Well, I do have, you know, it seems awful tight. And as being a fireman, driving the trucks, taking a corner like that onto a short, narrow road, it can cause problems. You know, I'd see there's concern there too. I would say it's a concern.
So,
Just taking a left or a right into there, when you drive those fire engines, you usually end up in the other lane. So you need as much room as you can get to make the turns. It is awfully narrow in a lot of ways. I mean,
One thing that is, it's fairly straight.
yeah,
So
that's true.
That's a kind of a mitigating factor. My concern is when you start off this tight, there's no flexibility. So when you have a guardrail on one side, and you have a guardrail on the other, and you've got only the minimum for your sidewalk and only the minimum for your roadway. If you go to clear snow, snow is going in the wetland. Now, that's not your issue,
Right.
but it's likely to be an issue when they go to Concom for approval. So how do you logistically manage that roadway, given the constraint?
You know, and the concern should be trucks too. You know, you're gonna have food service trucks, you're gonna have maybe delivery trucks, you're gonna have, I mean, there's a lot of different vehicles that are going down this road. It's just not, it's not just gonna be cars. I mean, it's gonna be, it is narrow, it is a narrow street or entrance, if you will.
But it meets the regulations for what a roadway needs to be in
And
Abington.
there's only one sidewalk on one side, is that what I'm hearing? Is that how,
Yes,
so there's no two sidewalks?
right.
Yeah, and I don't think the 22-foot roadway in the subdivision regs or whatever you contemplates a face of guardrail at that edge of road. So 22 feet is decent for a small residential roadway, not a problem there. It's the constraining influences that the guardrail put on that, because right now you have a guardrail that defines that edge of 22 feet. So if you skew from the 22 feet, you're hitting a guardrail.
All right.
So, for clarification for myself, so the 22 feet that you're talking about, is that the actual width of the road, or is that?
Paved, yes.
It's the paved width from face of curb to face of curb.
Okay, so that doesn't include the sidewalk?
It does not.
Okay.
So you have
There's another
two-
4 feet for
Right.
the sidewalk.
But what you're also saying is that, you know, a lot of roadways, you may have, you know, like that white line on the right-hand side where you have a little shoulder. In this instance, that white line is gonna be
Curb.
curb and guardrail.
Guardrail.
Okay.
I mean, to hit a curb, no big, I mean,
Right.
it's not the best thing, but it's not the end of the world. But in this case, you're not even gonna hit the curb, you're gonna hit the guardrail first.
Right.
Because your bumper is gonna go hit the guardrail before your tires ever hit the guardrail.
Right.
So it's really just, it's kind of like, it's not the 22 feet that I'm concerned about, it's the lack of anything beyond the 22 feet.
Right.
No other room.
Right, there's no-
space.
So if it were a 24-foot road, then you'd have two 11-foot lanes for the 22 feet. You'd have a foot for your, what we call a shoulder or a fog line. And then you'd have,
Margin of error.
ideally, the curb would be set, or the face of guardrail would be set back at least 6 inches to a foot from the face of curb. In this case, their back of wall is the back of curb. So it's just, there's no space on the sides of the road.
I think psychologically, that's gonna make whoever's approaching on that side, if that is on, say, the right-hand side of the road, so as you're approaching the property, psychologically, that's gonna make that lane feel narrow to someone driving.
Oh, yeah. I would probably even recommend that you consider skewing the center line over a couple, half a foot or so, just to accommodate
Right.
that, but,
Then you're taking away from the other side, though.
Mm. And if you do bump it out to 24 feet, then you're going to be exceeding the 5,000 square foot wetlands threshold?
I don't know.
Well, you said no, right?
Well, 23 you said no, but 24?
There's a room, but I mean additionally, so the cross-section that we have shown, we have, and I can go to that page. So 22-foot wide with pavement, the 4-foot sidewalk on this side. And the way it's shown, the guardrail's on top of the wall, it's more of a placeholder than anything. Again, my belief probably when we get done, and structurally that wall is designed, it can be affixed to the outside of the wall as part of the wall, and then you'll get that distance back in there. But that's a structural engineer as part of the construction phase of this, and certainly if that was a condition to move that to be 6 inches off the face of that curb, that could easily be accommodated.
So that might be something to think about. I think that we are looking, you have found a foot on either side that we could move this, that we make it bigger. Is that
There's
right?
about a foot of play, not the whole way, but, you know, again, this example of a wall, and the comment was brought up earlier, it's probably not going to be a stacked block wall, because if it's a stacked block wall, as you've seen, they end up having to be tied back. If they're tied back, it makes it tough to have utilities underneath them that if you ever had to repair them. So now we're looking at different types. So anything from, I mean, a sheet pile wall is just a sheet of steel that's driven. That's a possibility. There's poured concrete walls that I have details of that are 11 feet, that they're only 8 inches thick at the top. So again, I'm not a structural engineer. And when the next phase of this thing to go to construction documents would be having, you know, and as we get further into some of the comments, like a mechanical engineer to size specifically the fire service, you know, a structural engineer to come up with a construction document on the final, what this wall needs to be for them to certify it.
And if I could add too, the Conservation Commission is going to have an opinion and a position on the wall, whatever the construction is too. So
Yeah.
there's a good likelihood that Sean may represent to you a certain solution, but through the permitting process with the Conservation Commission, they see it a bit differently. And they do have a fair amount of control, given how close this is to the resource area. So
What is more comfortable with?
what I would say is, if they could match what's out here, I mean, it's almost the exact same situation. So as you drive in here, you're going through a tight section of wetland. They've got probably a 24-foot roadway. They've got a curb on one side and a curb on the other, and they've got guardrail on both sides. I don't think they have the available width to do that. At a minimum, I would prefer to see a 24-foot paved width and at least 6 inches of setback from the face of curb to the guardrail.
Well, what, are we missing out on the sidewalk there?
No, on the,
Right.
well, the sidewalk should still be there. I'm not as concerned about the guardrail on the side with the sidewalk.
Right,
Because the
yeah.
guardrail's
Yeah.
offset from the curb, and you know, if as long as you have 48 inches of clear width, that's more than enough for the pedestrians to get by. I do think there might be an issue when they go to permit this at Conservation Commission about snow removal, and you're not allowed to push snow into wetlands. So just this constrained sort of narrowness just creates a lot of logistical and operational issues that, yeah, I mean, they're not unsolvable, but I just want to make sure everybody's aware of them.
And we're not gonna solve that tonight, right? We'll move on to the next one, correct? All right. So we all kind of agree that it is tight. We'll agree on that. All right.
So you're looking for a redesign?
What does the board feel?
Well, I'd certainly need to see more specifics, I think.
I mean, you're saying that possibly it could be built this way and that way, but you're not really showing us that.
I mean, because to go into a structural design of a retaining wall at this phase is not typically done. What I'm saying is what's presented is a roadway that meets the regulations for the subdivision that's 22 foot wide with a sidewalk, and that we have the ability, if the requirement was to say that specifically on the side where the guardrail is tight and you wanted a 6-inch clearance, and we could certainly move that guardrail out 6 inches and make it part of a retaining wall design. To add 2 feet to the road, I don't know that that's something that can necessarily be accommodated, but I think it would be, sitting here, it would be very easy working with the structural engineer as part of designing the retaining wall to say that that guardrail needs to be 6 inches behind the curb. That's not a wholesale design change. That would be something that could be as easy as a condition. But again, to fully design retaining walls with structural engineers for a permitting phase, it's not something that's,
Well, we're not talking about the retaining wall.
It's really just apportioning the width and committing to a certain dimension.
Yeah.
And how you meet that dimension, I think, it only makes sense to do it after you talk with the Conservation Commission.
but for right now, I would say that we could certainly accommodate adding and making sure that that guardrail is 6 inches off behind the curbing as requested.
Well, perhaps, Mr. Chairman, we could highlight areas, just like Council suggested, that we might think of looking for redesign on. And this would be an area that we might think of asking for redesign on, in making the road a little bit larger, a little bit wider. Okay, so that's just, we should leave it there and move on, I think.
And even a foot makes a difference.
Yeah.
Giving yourself an extra 6 inches on either side is a substantive gain for a driver.
Yeah.
So
I
again,
just,
we all agree that it's a narrow street.
Well, yeah, I'm in agreement with
Yeah.
Mr. Hardy. And even if, like, you said, sir, if you can make it work with that extra foot, then I think it becomes more tenable. I know we're biting into your margin of error at that
Yeah.
point, but.
Well, yeah, and also, I mean, when we set out to design it, we looked at the planning board regulations on what a road needs to be, and that's what we designed.
Right. It seems to me it has the feel of the old Callahan Tunnel.
If I could just respond to that just for a minute. I'll agree that 24 feet is the traditional width of pavement, especially 10, 15 years ago. But many municipalities, and certainly the Society of Traffic Engineers guidelines, are suggesting, especially when you're in close proximity to sensitive resources like wetlands, that 12 feet on each side is absolutely not needed. We're seeing 11 feet as not unusual in developments on each side, and that's what your own planning board has. And there's even a push in some municipalities to, when you've got, a limited access driveway as opposed to, a main arterial street, to go to 10 feet. So what we're proposing here is pretty standard. Now, we understand, we'll look at it, but, I don't think we're too far off of really where, what's conventional.
Well, I understand and appreciate that, but at the same time, I think what comes into my mind is the length of this driveway versus, as you approach, this building from the little rotary at the high school, you go over a narrow bridge, but it's only, 50 feet long or 40 feet long or something like that, and this is a considerably longer span of road that, this makes me that much more concerned that someone's not paying attention, or there's more likely to be cars passing each other in a narrow area, and someone, senior housing, not as good peripheral vision, and they've got the curb and all, and there's no margin of error on either side of the road, so now they're trying to ride the center line. And I just, you know, that's my primary concern regarding that.
I note that Tetra Tech does say that they recommend that 24 feet be maintained as the minimum in their letter.
And I'll preface this by saying, I agree with Dan. 24 feet is a robust roadway.
Right.
The reason I'm recommending 24 feet here is because of the constraints on either side. That you don't have a grass shoulder, you don't have a recovery zone, you don't have anything except for a 4-foot sidewalk on one side, which there could potentially be a person on it. You don't have anything that allows you any flexibility beyond that 22 feet currently. So I agree with Dan completely. I'm a big advocate of necking down to 22 feet if you can, but you do have to have some sort of run out or spillover area in order to support that narrowing of the width. So just want to be clear on that. But and again, this is sort of a instinctive reaction because, to Sean's point, yeah, 22 feet's a standard roadway width, absolutely. What we're talking about is the nuance of the setting that 22 feet is in, and the lack of any available space to do anything beyond that. And that's our concern.
Well, I guess that's the question, Sean. Is that standard to have a guardrail right up against the roadway? Is that something that is common, or?
No, and not really even on a bridge. So on a bridge, you'd have a bridge rail that's set at least a foot off the traveled way. But this is not a highway. It's not a high volume roadway. It's a driveway, but it is a long driveway. So there's all sorts of things to weigh here, and it's really just a matter of, when I say it, literally an extra 8 inches or 12 inches, or every half a foot is going to be the difference between maybe someone hitting a guardrail or maybe not hitting a guardrail. And as a parent of a teenager, give him 29 feet.
There's no width good enough.
And a son of a 80-year-old, a little bit more.
Yeah.
Yeah, and keep in mind too, this is going to be up above that wetland too. It's 5-6 feet high, so it's
It's got to drop.
yeah.
Where are you seeing the 20, I don't see the 22 feet in the subdivision, in the subdivision rules and regulations. You said it's in here?
Yeah, I didn't bring a copy, but that's the minimum roadway
Okay.
width.
Well, I guess that's the other question I was going to ask you, Amy. That's the minimum. That doesn't mean.
That's what I'm trying to find out, actually.
We're required to have.
Yeah, I'm trying to find out how it's worded.
Okay.
So when I go to a guardrail, what's the length, the width?
26 feet, right?
26?
Outer guard, well, you mean the traveling distance?
No,
or
just
the
from
entire
that
width of the-
guardrail to this
26
guardrail.
as shown there, but again, and I say it further in the comments, we show the guardrail acknowledging that a guardrail is going to be part of this, and a guardrail is going to be integral to the retaining wall design when it's built, so there is some flexibility in placement of that.
Okay, so 4 feet takes up one sidewalk.
Yes.
And then 22 is the rest. You guys find anything?
I'm just skimming around.
And just to Sean's point about structural design, we've been in situations like this where when you mount a guardrail on a structure, it fundamentally
Okay.
changes it. You no longer can have
It's 22 feet.
just a nice, kind
Oh, yeah.
of bucolic timber guardrail. The timber guardrails work because they're set in
On each.
earth and supported on both sides. When you start mounting them to sides of
Yeah.
structures, there's some confusion as to whether it becomes a bridge rail as opposed to a guardrail. So, fundamentally different beasts sometimes when you get into that.
22 feet with the.
So is
plus
the
one-
layout 40
feet.
feet?
Well, there is no layout per se, because it's
There's
property.
no grading?
The layout typically refers to the
Right.
Property line,
Yeah.
yeah. And there's this,
Is there any grading, though? I'm sorry, that's what I meant. On the sides? It doesn't look like there is, because you have the walls, right?
correct.
Okay. And you have Cape Cod berm on each side?
No, we're proposing
Yeah, so-
concrete curb.
Yeah, that was a change.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you gain half a foot there on each side by using curb instead of berm.
The, just so you guys know, the 22-foot term comes from, it's for a residential subdivision, which is what this is not.
Right, it's not. There any others, any other widths?
I
Or-
don't see any right now, let's see. No,
Well, it's not a subdivision, clearly, but it's residential, it's access to a residential development.
right, however, if you had a residential develop, how many units is this? 100 and something?
44?
Yeah, if you had a residential development with that many units, you'd need another access point, which you don't have. So I'm not sure that's your best argument. Because if you have, I think if you have a residential development, I think it said 10 here, you have to have a separate easement, a separate access. So you have to have 2 access points.
For the 22?
Yeah, so I don't think this should be, I don't think this should be compared to a residential development, a residential subdivision.
Is there anything for condos or anything like that, or?
No, they're the subdivision rules and regulations.
So, so what would be, what would the jurisdiction in terms of, or the regulation be in terms of the width?
Right.
There really, I doubt the zoning bylaw has a requirement
Really?
for street width, so there really wouldn't be a width requirement.
On average? Nothing?
I think that's why we have Tetra Tech, to tell us what the right width would be.
24.
I think so. I think it's
And
pretty clear.
That's from, that is supposed to be from guardrail to walkway to guardrail, right?
Mhm.
So 20 feet.
So yeah, at least 24 feet,
24 feet.
and at least 6
So
inches
it's 2
between the
feet.
road and the guardrail.
We get the point. I suggest that, why don't we look at design, see what we can do.
Right,
And-
well, this is why we're doing this.
Yeah,
because,
exactly.
I mean,
Yeah, we hear you.
Okay,
And,
all right.
and we'll see what we can do.
And so we want to move on from this, is that what we want to do? Move on to the next one?
Absolutely.
Okay, all right.
Half an hour for each point.
No,
Well, that's a big one, that was
Yeah,
one
that
of
was-
the, that was.
No, I
one
know,
that's-
I know.
Actually,
Work at 7.
And I'd like to say.
Amy,
admittedly,
the
I-
zoning
I'd like
bylaws
to-
have a definition for street, and they have
What do they have?
a traveled way of 16 feet exclusive of berms and curbs, right-of-way width of 40 feet. Does that impact it?
What was that?
In the zoning bylaws, they do have a definition of street, and it has a traveled way of 16 feet exclusive of berms or curbs.
60 feet on each.
That could be an aisle.
Yeah.
Maybe an aisle in a parking lot.
Hmm,
16 feet would be pretty narrow.
yeah, yeah. I don't know where that comes from.
Usually that's a one-way aisle in a parking lot.
Hmm.
Okay, all right, so, discuss that more.
That was easy.
But those are minimum standards, yeah.
We moved on to the next one?
We,
Yeah, so 2 was an offshoot of the roadway width, so I don't think we need to talk about that one. 3 is town information, everything provided, everything looks great with that. 4, this was just, we asked for a little bit more detail, and actually I made a mistake. They actually provided the detail on the cover, so I think that's enough information for us for now.
Okay.
Item number 5 was really more just a tool to help the board sort of understand the scope and scale of the landscape areas. We don't necessarily need that for our technical review, but, it'd certainly be a nice summary.
We did, I don't know if it mattered, but I did the calculation, and in the spreadsheet, it's about 8,000 square feet of landscaped area that's up in that developed portion of the site.
By landscaped area, are you defining that as green space, or does that include parking lots?
It's green space, but it also includes some of the islands in the parking lots. And again, as Sean said, you know, I think it was more for a point of clarification probably than anything. So I did want to answer the question.
And sometimes, I don't know if Abington's site plan review requirements have certain minimum landscape areas for pavement. So this is, it's a residential project, but it has a commercial feel to it. It's a big parking lot, big building, so didn't know if you wanted to apply certain kind of landscape coverage percentages.
Well, in your comment, you mentioned snow storage, and although I understand it's an issue with the Conservation Commission, have you worked out where snow storage
I did show
is?
it on the plan, so. At least up here in the parking area, so we identify this area all in here that can be snow storage, and there's a substantial amount of area over here as well.
No, right along the fence line where the parking is, up against where the railroad tracks are, is there guardrail in there?
No.
So somebody could accidentally go through the fence, and go right into the tracks? Right here.
There's curving around. I'm just trying to look at the grades. Tracks are higher than.
There's no guardrails here?
So regarding the snow storage, so if you can think of, that whole parking lot needs to be cleared. Again, there's no spillover area. There's no, usually when you comply with zoning, it creates these sort of transitional areas and things like that. So to your point, Rich, that whole edge, there's no place to push snow on that whole edge.
Right.
So you have to, we have to push all the snow to the sides. There's probably not enough practical space there to do much. So I think you gotta contemplate an aggressive snow removal strategy, or, you know, the snow is gonna be where it doesn't belong. And then you add to that the snow that's coming off the roadway that can't go in the wetland.
They're gonna
I'm
have
not
to
gonna say
truck
it
it out.
won't.
They're gonna have to truck it out. I mean, they're gonna have to,
Again, it's just a matter of just disclosing these kind of nuances so people understand that they're.
there's no space to put snow.
Right.
Because again, we have a tight area where they're building.
Right, there's really not much landscape area between the buildings and the sidewalks, so there's sidewalks all around the buildings, and so it's pretty efficiently laid out that.
I mean, could that be conditioned that they have to truck it out? That they have to take it out?
I've seen that in the past.
I mean, I think that should be a condition, that it has to be removed because you're too close to the wetlands.
Well, that would be, I think the Conservation Commission, I think, would decide whether but we have located an area over there, there's a substantial amount of property that's over by the power lines, and as well as the other side that, and I think the feeling is it's senior housing, that it's probably going to be an aggressive snow removal when it happens. So those areas have been identified, and I certainly think if they can accommodate it and stay ahead of it, that I don't know why there would have to be a condition.
Because I
that it
think
would-
they're concerned with it being pushed, and then pushed into the wetlands. I mean, it's a possibility that it could be pushed into the wetlands.
Are there wetlands in this part, the east and west sides of the layout?
On the page, right to left, no, the wetlands are at the bottom of the page.
This is your wetland line. There's a lot of them there.
So there's nothing off to the other side where the high tensions are?
No,
Is it, that's private property though, isn't it? Over there?
part of this property.
What's that?
It's part of this property.
Well, Mr. Chairman, wetlands, of course, is a consideration, but surely the main consideration is safety, all right? And so it would be actually something that zoning would talk about in any recommendations.
In all likelihood, what would happen is you'd lose parking.
Yeah.
So
I think so, because that's where he was showing. That's where you were showing to put the snow, it's in the parking spaces.
No, it's not.
No?
It's adjacent to the parking.
Well, I guess my thought,
Okay.
and just looking at the lot there on the left side where the proposed snow removal deposit location is, if that area is full of parked cars for the residents, how do the plows, how do the trucks put the snow where it's gotta be?
Because that looks like a parking area to me.
Right. Right, and I don't know how full it is versus,
I think that's
I don't know if
generally,
that's visiting parking or what, and that's,
That's the
we
case
live
in any
New England,
parking
I mean, we know
right.
what is gonna happen.
oh, I get that, but that's also the same case in any parking lot. I mean, that's a reality of plowing a parking lot.
But you will be taking away parking spots.
The areas that I identified that snow could go are not taking away parking spots.
But what we obviously have to do is you've got to have a management program that, alerts those residents that have cars there that when it snows, they need to be moved. This is, I agree with Sean, this comes up all the time because the snow storage areas are almost always behind a parking lot. You manage it. And there's quite a bit of room there, because we've got the easement where we can't do anything else.
Does the easement allow you to put snow storage, or do they have to maintain access through there, Dan?
I don't know.
So my general comment is, the site is encumbered by pavement or building. There's not much left, so we'd at least like to know that there's been some thought and some conscientious thought, not just, well, I've got an open space here.
You got a good point there, because looking at this, I mean, they're putting it right on the line, and they're putting it right on the line of the parking areas. And it's right on the property line too, so that when the snow melts, where's it gonna go? Is it gonna go on the wetlands, is it gonna go on the
Is that senior housing?
Yeah,
That's the
that's the senior housing, right?
area, yeah.
Because this is the property line right here, and you got the snow right here. And what's this?
Rubble pile?
Where is that? What is that?
Rubble pile?
Rubble pile?
That's existing.
There's a big pile of rocks there.
Okay.
Looking at the right-hand side, sir.
Over here.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, that, I agree, that's cut.
Well, that's where you're supposed to put the snow storage.
Yeah, but there's also snow storage over here.
Yeah, let's take a look at that now. So where's the property line on this?
It's on the other side of the,
Okay, that's the property line over here?
Yes.
That's quite a bit of space.
Yeah, that's quite a bit of space.
There's, a lot of that is encumbered by an easement.
Right, and I had brought that up before, that's Brockton Edison, or Edison now.
Traditionally, you need to maintain access through there for them to.
I'd asked that before too, about that piece of property. But it's not wetlands,
Correct.
but it is an easement.
So, I mean, if this area is about a little bit bigger than the depth of a parking space, and the parking spaces are, how long, 12 feet?
18.
18 feet, so you're looking about, you got about a 20-foot
Yeah.
buffer
It's a big area.
on that end, considerably less.
Less on
20
this,
feet
yeah.
max on that end, and nothing to speak of at the top end of that map. Right, I mean, because that's only,
Again, and it's generally an area that snow can be pushed, and that's how, when you manage in a snowstorm, I mean, people, there's parking lots all over the place, they manage it, they
Yeah,
push
but
it in
it's
an
a
area.
good question. I
And if
mean,
it was gonna have to be removed, that would be a reasonable staging area to accomplish that.
right. Okay.
So, we have an uplands line, and below that uplands line is wetlands, correct? Is that how that goes? Upland, that would be the wetlands?
Right.
So over here, I mean, basically you have it feeding off into the wetlands.
No, I don't think, there's no wetlands on the rubble pile side, because to the right of this,
The wetlands are all to the bottom of the page.
this is all the senior center over here, so
Right,
there's no
right.
wetlands over there.
Right in here? Right in here.
Maybe, yeah.
That's the wetlands, right?
A little bit on the corner, yeah.
Right, corner. So you're really piling it on this side. On this side, you're getting really close to the wetlands, as you can see where the line goes up. And that should cross into the wetlands with the pile on this map, yeah. Unless I'm mistaken. It says uplands, and then where is the wetlands on there? Can you show that me again?
On the corner, why don't you show them, Rich?
Is this right here? This is the wetlands in here? This is the wetlands? Right there?
Sean, maybe what Sean can do is just give us maybe a strategy and a calculation as to how much can realistically put, how much you likely to generate for,
Right.
let's say, a 3-inch storm, and then how much can you fit on the site, assuming a certain compaction factor, just a quick little calculation. My concern is that you can, all day long, you can identify little open areas where you can put
Yeah.
snow. The question is, how much snow can you put?
And again, on that easement, they have a lot of room there too, that, I mean,
Mm-hmm.
again.
This
Closer
year
to-
wouldn't be a problem, would it?
What's that?
So far this year
Don't
wouldn't be
say
a
that,
problem.
it's not over yet.
I said so far.
Yeah.
Global warming. Even before they hit that
There's all
easement.
sorts of strategies, you can.
Truck it out?
Truck it out, you can ask for space from your neighbors, you can do all. Really just, what I wanna do is identify it as.
Sure.
It's not a practically obvious situation where you have things that you can, places where you can put it. And in this case, it's compounded by a very long roadway, that for all intents and purposes, they're gonna have to do something with
They're
that
gonna
snow
have to clean
too.
that out too,
Yeah.
and put that somewhere. I mean, that has to be added into it.
And I don't know if the Concom is gonna restrict their use of de-icing materials and things like that, so it could become an issue that is gonna be something to look back on and stuff.
All right, so we need to,
Move
we
on
need,
from that, I think.
we need more information on that.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure Mr. Lapointe has equipment to.
Sure, oh yeah, definitely. Not speaking for him, but, okay.
I think we're on 6. And this is the emergency access drive that is shown on the plans, and I may have got a little bit confused by the traffic consultant's comments and suggesting that wasn't gonna be there. My understanding is that there is going to be an emergency access at the back of the site, so I just
Do
want to.
we know how big it's gonna be, or do we know if it's gonna be 1 lane or 2 lanes, or?
We don't yet,
gated,
so I was hoping we could get a little bit more detail on that.
I think we're assuming it's gated, so it's not, you know, a secondary exit. Is that correct, sir?
That's correct.
And that it could be used by emergency
Correct.
equipment, it can use it.
So I think this is a key point, actually, that we have to talk about, the access, secondary access. And I heard from a selectman, one of our bosses, recently that they put up the road of the senior centre to bid, but no bid was received. Do you know anything about that?
Actually, my clients did put in a bid,
They did.
but the bid was, the request for bids was based on a prior design of this particular project that would have called for the access to the project to be via the senior center, not via Plymouth Street. That was an access that the town fathers decided that they didn't want. Okay, so while we put in a bid, we said, well, and it, called for things like repaving and a much wider road than, it wasn't really an emergency access that was called for in the request for proposals. So we put in a response that said, well, we're responding, but that's not really what we plan to do. The town has withdrawn that request for proposals and is going to put out a new request for proposals.
On that same opening, if you will.
Opening, which will be available for bid, and which I'm sure we will bid on to
And
use as an emergency access.
And this will be gated off and all be
Exactly.
done and ready to go.
Yep.
All right.
Excellent.
Okay.
Thank you.
So when our concern is, given the configuration of the access road coming in, I can conceive of a scenario where that emergency entry becomes real important. And right now, it really doesn't, there's no detail on where it goes, how it terminates, it just shows it going into a rubble pile. So what we would like is a little bit more clarity on the configuration of that, and so that the fire department can look at it and say, well, if I can't get in the front and get to that turnaround,
Right.
I have to come in the other way. I'm not so convinced they can get around the site, given the way the parking's laid out and the radii at each of the corners. So, although I agree that the fire truck can come in and can turn around in that circle in the front, if they have to come in from the emergency access, I'm not sure how they get
How
access
would
to
they
that.
access that way? Oh, correct. You want to see that on paper, how they would get into there.
And typically what we'd have is we just have, it's called the fire truck access plan. And it
Okay.
shows the truck coming in at whatever the constraining vehicle that the fire chief tells Sean what to use. They can do an auto turn sketch that shows exactly how the truck circulates.
Sounds reasonable.
I mean, that was discussed, and the fire department said that the feeling was they could get the truck in and around the building without difficulty. As far as the access, I can't show it because it hasn't been, the easement hasn't been granted yet, so I don't know the specifics of it. But the site as laid out, like I said, was based on a couple of comments or a few revisions that went back and forth to the fire department, and plan shown, I think revision 2 even says fire department comments.
So Sean, you tell me that a fire truck coming in from the emergency access road can turn left into that drive aisle, turn right, and get to the front of that building where that 100-foot turnaround is?
I'm telling you that it was expressed to me that the fire
It's not
chief
the question
was...
I asked you. I said...
Well, it's not designed, so I don't have that, but the fire chief was indicated that the fire chief thought that the truck could get in and around the building and circulate around the building.
When was that?
Obviously, some of the, I'm
The-
sorry, Dennis.
I'd have to look at the date of the... There's a revision date on the plan.
So this is yours.
Maybe.
Revised drop-off per plan, revised drop-off here, so there was 2 revisions on September 18th, September 26th, that were back and forth with the fire department.
Okay.
And the fire chief was here. First public
I
hearing.
think Sean's question is on the access road, not the main road, the access road.
Yeah, and
Have you talked to the fire chief about whether or not he thinks it's okay for his vehicles to get in through the access road?
Not specifically because it hasn't been designed, but my
Right.
guess is if he feels as though he can come across the front of the building and take a left and then another left and go around the building, it wouldn't be any harder to come in and take a left and go around the other way.
Right,
But
well-
I think it would make us more comfortable if we actually had something from the fire chief, after you design the road, I guess, into the access road, saying that it's okay.
And there's a very simple analysis that can prove it or disprove it.
Yeah.
And based on my experience, I don't think a fire truck can navigate those two turns.
this is an actual topical issue here with the fire chief and the Abington Fire Department, where recently they have found in some developments that they have problems moving around. So it's actually a very topical issue. But I understand your answer really is, well, there's no access road actually
Right.
designed yet, and so I really can't comment on it. But this would be an issue for us.
Yeah, well, I mean, we have no idea.
Island here.
Yeah, there is an island there, in here too. See this one? So we can kind of tight the corners. Yeah, so we don't even know what this is gonna look like, this access road.
Yeah,
If it's going behind the building or beside the building or,
Nor do we know how they get to that point from the public road.
right, and also how wide that's gonna be,
Correct.
because it's kind of iffy on that.
Dan,
Yeah,
did
more
the
information.
town manager give you any indication as to when this new request for proposal is going to be out?
I don't know.
I spoke to the town manager about it. We basically, in our response, gave it the design that we thought was gonna be, that would make sense based on the conversations, but, they were gonna talk about it and then put it back out under the procurement law, so. I can't imagine it's gonna take very long since we pretty much rewrote it for them.
Excellent.
What is this rubble pile? What is that?
Just a bunch of rocks.
Is it gonna remain?
Big bunch of rocks.
It's on the senior center property.
Well, some of it's on your property. Those are gonna be removed, I take it, to put in the access?
Yeah, that'll have to go.
Anything that's...
And so why isn't it being removed So, is that snow storage still, that's gonna stay there? You guys are okay with that there?
I would've liked it in the middle myself. I mean, I would've liked it, I mean, I would've liked it right here, access right here, instead of way tucked over
But then it
here.
goes right through the pickleball courts.
Yeah, that's true, you don't wanna do that.
That's not their property. I mean, you gotta think. If
No
if
matter
I'm reading
what.
This is this, and then the senior house, the senior center is here.
Is that where it is?
Yeah, I don't think they're in a straight line, are they?
I don't know, it's not showing it.
I don't know, I don't remember, but I do know that whatever the road is, it basically
It can't go by the
brushes the front
pickleball.
of the, it brushes the front of the senior center, which is partly why the selectmen turned that
I
down.
wonder if it goes like this, around the pickleball court.
I don't remember. I'll have to take a look next time.
Be interesting to see how that works.
So why is there nothing where it says TP9? Behind building A? Right, so why can't we shift parking on for the area, create an area for? I mean, it seems like a pretty large area that's got nothing on it.
It was green space intended to be trying to maximize some green space
So
around.
then put the snow storage there, and so switch it. Put parking there, you can put parking close to the wetlands. So put the parking there and find another area for green space, snow storage. I mean, I think that might solve the concern, that might resolve some of the concerns of the board with snow storage, and then they'll have to truck it out.
She wants to get rid of the green space.
And where
Where it says TP9, the test pit, that area.
TP9 right over here.
Oh, I see it right there, yeah.
If they shift parking over to there,
I hate it.
And
Oh, wow.
then
they can put snow storage somewhere else.
It's right next to the building, right? Why not?
Yeah, I mean,
We can look at that. Good idea.
That's a great idea. And then you'll have plenty of room to. Is that something you consider? Look into it?
He said,
I can look into it. I know that, I don't think the driveway that we have
their
shown coming down
border
behind
of their
that
land,
building is 24 feet wide, but we can see what we can do.
Snake something in here.
We'll
Oh,
look at
coming
it.
behind the building, by the maintenance?
I think that's where it would have to go. We're getting pretty close to the wetland at the building, I would think, to get two-way traffic through there, unless it was one-way, that's possible. Look at it.
Okay,
What'll help too is getting a sense as to how much snow is being generated during the night,
that's true too.
so we can sort of gauge whether or not we're even talking the right language.
Right.
Kind of jumping around. Yeah, no, it's a good idea though, to look into it.
So item 7 was just more of an observation than a true technical issue. If you look at the area between the two buildings kind of touch,
Yeah.
there's a lot happening at that location.
Yeah,
And one side has a nice open patio sort of increases visibility at that corner, whereas building A has, sort of sticks out into that intersection that just sort of restricts kind of the movement and the visibility over there. It's just an observation that if there's anything they can do that sort of open that area up. Even if it's with glass or something to address the fact that as people come through there, they're not gonna be seeing what's happening on. So if you're approaching that from the left side of the sheet, approaching that where the turnaround for the fire truck is from approaching from the left, you're not gonna be able to see anything that's happening coming from the access road until you clear the corner of that building. I don't know if I'm describing that well enough.
So this is going underneath the bridge, if you will, right? Right there. Are you talking about the 24-inch width, 24-foot width? Is that what you're talking about, where the patio is?
Yeah, I'll show you what I mean. So you gotta figure about all these folks, and half of these folks are gonna come this way to get up.
Okay.
So if you look, they have a nice big open flat area here,
Right.
so visibility wise, you can see in this area real well. But as these folks are coming this way, this building comes to a right angle.
Oh.
It's only 4 feet off the edge of the road. So really, as you're driving here and looking to stop here, you're really not gonna be able to see anything to your right, because that building's gonna be in the way.
Good point.
So ideally, if they could open it up a little bit at this corner, so that the folks stopping at this stop bar could actually see what's happening on the right.
But why is the stop bar there instead of all the way down where you can see?
Probably because the crosswalk is there,
Okay,
so.
all right.
Well, there's a crosswalk there. Could mirrors, could something as simple as mirrors be used?
Could, but again, it's sort of like a constrained location. You're gonna have a very vertical wall here, a very vertical wall here, so just, my comment is appreciate that there's a lot of activity going on. These are the two main entrances, I presume. There's gonna be a lot of activity in this one location. And it's got pretty poor visibility along one side and a pretty constrained environment on both sides.
Good point.
What if you made that just a one-way?
Because if you made it a one-way, it could be narrower too. So just something to think about.
Yeah.
Can you shift building A back towards the street?
There's a lot you can do.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I'm redesigning this project and I'm not. an
Well,
engineer.
what you could do is change the direction of the L.
Yeah,
So
Yeah.
mirror it, so
Yeah.
that space that you talked about being taken up.
would be
taken
a
up by
small,
building.
yeah, the small end of the L, yeah.
Then you could open up green space on the, so that the top sheet side,
Mhm.
but again, that's just, it's the designers.
Do you
It's
have,
strange, here's your stop line, and you turn to look and you're in the building.
Correct.
Building, you're not looking, you can't see what's coming.
And you're only 4 feet away from that building,
Okay.
so it's close. It's probably not much more than the width of that table.
does the engineer have any suggestion? Do you have any suggestions, or? Do you see what we were talking about? Yeah.
Well, I mean, the buildings architecturally weren't, I'm not the architect, so I designed the site
Right.
as best as I could. I mean, if something needs to be at that corner, I think the architect can probably accommodate something there.
Yeah, I do agree that something has to be done with that. Because you look at, if you turn, and you look at the wall, I mean, what's that, you gotta keep moving out.
And I don't want it to be lost either. These are big, good-sized buildings, so I would imagine a lot of activity at those two locations.
Is this a sidewalk here, excuse me, a crosswalk? Or is that where the bridge goes across
It's both.
connection? It is, okay.
It's both.
Yeah.
All right, so,
Oh, really?
so we have a crosswalk and there's your connection, your bridge connection.
Admittedly, I didn't realize there was a bridge connection.
No, there is,
So that's a mitigating thing, so it means people can move to and from the buildings without having to.
That's correct.
Yeah.
But still, there is
Still a
also,
tough corner.
there also is a crosswalk there too. So, I mean, your point is well taken, you know?
Yeah, maybe like, was it Mr. Burbine said, make it a one-way.
Well, you have to figure that out too, because you gotta make sure there's enough exiting and entering areas. Can't just have that a one-way, and everything else. That's, You're gonna make this all a one-way, going this way?
Hmm.
All right, so, point well taken there. Yeah.
We get it.
10?
Nine is actually all set. I left comment not resolved, the comments resolved.
Actually, are we on 8?
Yeah, you missed 8.
The canyon, the wind.
That's
was
exactly, that's the
That was-
situation.
Was that,
we're
okay.
talking about.
Yeah.
Okay.
So 9 is addressed, 10 is addressed, 11, that's an offshoot of the access road discussion, so we've sort of crossed that. Trash compactor is really just a little bit of a wonky location. I think you can get to it. One thing to consider though is NFPA requirements is in order to, minimum width for fire truck access is 20 feet. And there's only 18 there. So just want to make sure
That
that,
could be an issue, yeah.
not that we couldn't get through there if we needed to, but it wouldn't have enough room for outriggers. things like that.
Right, if they set up on that,
That was one of the things I had responded. Again, none of these were raised by the fire chief, but certainly I picked a dumpster and showed it. I can pick a smaller dumpster.
oh, there you go.
So that should be done.
Yeah, that should be done, because if someone has to set up an aerial ladder on that corner, which we usually do, that's gonna be tight for the truck. And that's why they ask for the outriggers on the ladder trucks. They take up 2 feet.
Okay.
13 was taken care of, 14 was taken care of. 15, just more of a comment. I would imagine that the board, the ZBA doesn't have to deal with this, the Conservation Commission will. So it's important to note that a lot of, some of the stormwater performance standards and these wetlands issues are a necessary part of the discussion with Concom, and there's no way they're not gonna have to file with Concom because of just the roadway itself.
And they're surrounded by wetlands, yeah.
Correct. Yep, agreed.
Yeah, 16 was just, yep, they showed the utilities, but they showed it connecting to a pole that's right in the middle of the driveway, so we just gotta fix that. 17 was taken care of, 18 was taken care of. 19, so I don't think you provided sizing calculations for the culvert,
I didn't, but I did respond with a comment that the existing road now is in the same, or the proposed road's in the same place of an existing road now with 24 inch culvert instead of an 18 inch culvert, so.
Okay, that's fair. Yep.
Is that considered a road? That access? This main road? Is that considered a road now?
Well, it's a gravel road now.
Is it?
Yeah.
It's a dam. So the issue is our concern is if, when you put a culvert underneath the roadway, it needs to be sized properly to carry all that flow that's coming to it. In this case, what Sean's saying is that the dam is already there that keeps the flow from going across the future location of the roadway, and it's currently served by an 18-inch pipe, so putting a 24-inch one should be more than that.
Okay. All right.
20 was resolved, 21. Yeah, this is something that we run into quite a bit, and I don't know, Sean, if you fix this, but, so when they design the stormwater system to mitigate for the new impervious area, they have these infiltration chambers that allow water to go back into the ground. What sometimes gets overlooked is the fact that there's water from off the site that comes onto the site. And we just want to make sure that they've included all the off-site areas that flow to the site in their calculations.
And I know it's late, and I know it's small, but I responded, so the upper boundary of the tracks, there's not a whole lot that's contributing from there. The rubble pile certainly prevents anything right now from currently going there. I don't know what's gonna happen necessarily there. And then further up on the, I guess it's north of this, it's a large wooded area. So there's not much, anything that's contributing from that wooded area is getting into the wetland and kind of continuing on, so it's not really being routed through.
So all you just need to do
systems.
is just on your drainage area sheets, just make sure you extend to the limit of the drainage divide rather than to the limit of the property. So if you do that, then we're fine. And then those areas would have to be reflected in the and the reason that is, it might seem piddly, but you know, if you've got a basin that's or an underground feature that's sized for an acre of runoff, and it's getting 2 more acres that you hadn't counted, it affects how it functions. So we just want to make sure it gets done right. So 22 was taken care of. 23, this is just something Sean and I will have to discuss about kind of their model. This is more of an engineer issue, something you guys don't need to worry about. 24 is taken care of. 25 is taken care of. 26 is something that industry practices. You've got these underground infiltration systems. The reason they work is they've got gravel around them and the water can go in and can seep into the ground. The problem is as you have a parking lot and as you have trash and as you have sediment and stuff, that also goes to these things and clogs it up. What they typically do is when you have an underground infiltration system is you have what's called an isolator row ahead of it, which allows you to filter out some of that crap that otherwise is going to choke out your infiltration system. So we typically recommend the engineers at least consider it, and if they can provide it, great. If they can't, give us a reason why they can't provide it, and we'll have that discussion.
And I did respond that as designed right now, we have the deep sump hooded catch basins flowing to deep sump hooded manholes to provide the 44%, the required removal rate, so. And it's easier to maintain. It's you flip open the lid of a manhole and you can vacuum it out and versus.
So what he refers to is these catch basin structures, they take care of about 20% of the crap that gets in the system. So the other 80% is going right through. So it's usually not a big deal because you're going to these open, what are traditionally usually open detention ponds, and they flow to a natural drainage course, not a big deal. In this case, their mitigation is underground, out of sight. There really needs to be, in our opinion, a higher sensitivity to keeping crud from getting in. So, I'll take a look at the 44%. I'm not sure how that
Yeah, I mean, it's good practice too for the Conservation Commission, because this will be a big issue in conservation as well.
But again, I think I'm meeting the regulation with what we have shown.
Moving to water, so I think the intent is to provide a loop connection back through the senior center. Is that correct?
Yes, there's a hydrant that they wanted us to connect to on the next page. It shows where they told us to connect it to the water department, but.
Where's that located?
On the senior center site.
Currently, I guess, hydrant there.
Down here, connect to existing, proposed 8-inch ductile to connect to existing. So there's a dead end of the hydrant now on the senior center property up next to the senior center. It's kind of hard to see on the page. It's tucked off to the side. It connects back over here. I admit it.
Okay.
Just find it there for a minute. But that's what water department had asked us to do. Go to there.
So that's where the main water line for the hydrants is gonna go?
Or is that the second
No,
one?
so we're coming in off of the main street up
Yeah.
to service our property.
Okay.
And the water department asked us to come around the building and go out by the senior center and tie in where the dead end is there's a hydrant there that's dead ended. So they asked us to make that.
So we'll make a double loop.
Yeah,
Yeah.
to loop the system.
Okay, I see that.
So what would be great is just show, I mean, right now you show it going right through the hydrant. If we just clean that up a bit, show the physical connection to that. So it's a dead end line and there's a hydrant off of that dead end line? Or,
Right now with their details, they went out and said, here's where we want you. And Kind of connection details will be worked out with them, but that's what they asked us to do.
Are you gonna transit any wetlands to get to that?
Not other than what we're already doing through the road.
So you're gonna be going through the town property to,
Correct.
So I think the detail that he's shown is good enough for this level, that on the final plan, they should show.
show the whole process where it's going.
Yeah, how it's being connected, where the valve is being placed. But as far as this, I'm pretty comfortable that they've got a strategy for how they're
Yeah.
getting this back, and that's a great thing. So 28 is just something that we like to ask for, just for the purposes of documentation. Just provide some record for the file that they've looked at pressures and water supply and confirmed that it's adequate.
My comment was back, and I don't have the paperwork here for what, but the water department gave us, they have flow tests there that they had done. So that's why they told us to do what we did, so we can provide that.
Yeah, so just, all it is something for the board to have on file that lays out that case. Yeah, the hydrant, I'm surprised that the chief would accept a single hydrant on the site. I could be wrong, maybe there's others, but I would expect there to be more than one.
So that was an issue. Yeah, I mean, that was an issue that you brought up, I think, at our first meeting. The idea of, what literally, was there enough water? Was there flushing enough water in the hydrant for we have the senior centre and we have this project here. And I was trying to look at my notes, but
One hydrant for this whole,
I could be wrong on that, I just didn't.
Yeah, there's the one hydrant and then the one that we're connecting to just off the property on the senior center, but that's what we.
Was that requested, or was that on the plan and he reviewed the plan? Or was it requested by the fire department? So there's a
I
difference
forget
between
the
the fire
exact-
chief saying, we only want one hydrant, or the fire chief reviewing plans and saying everything's fine. There's a big difference, I think.
And
I think the
where-
fire chief probably should take another look
yeah,
at this.
because that doesn't make sense. to
This
me
is
at
our
all.
third issue, I think, with
I mean,
fire.
how big is this lot again? 2 buildings, 1 hydrant? Oh. It doesn't make sense.
So,
Where is the hydrant on this?
so we'll reach out to the.
It's right in the front in the parking area.
I thought when he was here, we had a discussion
Is
about
that it?
hydrants, and we
Right there.
decided we were gonna add
Yeah,
additional.
but you get a fire over here, I mean, it doesn't make any sense, to me at least.
Right.
There should be at least one in the back, too. At least one for each building.
Yeah, so we'll reach out to the chief and get clarification.
Seriously, there's only one hydrant in this whole property here.
Yes.
Is there hydrants going down the road or anything, or? So how long is the road?
I think it's about 1,000 feet.
1,000 feet, that's about what we have for a hose on the trucks, for laying lines. So,
Usually it's like 300 feet, if I recall correctly, between hydrants, but, again, so we typically, the chief
Yeah.
gets
see what
whatever the
says.
chief wants in the end.
So this says the second concern, hydrant and water supply need more hydrants.
That was the chief's comment?
Yes.
it definitely needs one, that, you can't have just one hydrant on this property.
That is from the September 20th meeting.
And we said that plural. Hydrants.
That's what my notes say.
Oh, and I recall that conversation.
I think even to a layman, you would need more than one hydrant for a project like this, I would think.
And to an engineer.
Yeah,
Yes, that's gotta be looked in big time.
And I would also offer a bit of caution. Chiefs, I don't know, your fire chiefs, but chiefs get what they want in the end, so they have the hammer. They'll get whatever they
But if they're
want.
going by, the chief approved this, I don't think so, I don't think so. 30 years on the job, I don't think this would be acceptable to me, not the chief though.
but this is good, because this is why we're meeting, to talk about this, right?
We will look at that. I mean, we'll certainly add a
I'll
hydrant.
go a step further than that. You're gonna need more than one hydrant, I'm telling you right now. I'm not an engineer, but I've been on the job for 30 years.
And it may inform the route that the water line takes in order to provide those. So I mean, the really nice things, I don't want to, having it loop back to the senior center is a huge benefit. So in terms of its operability, in terms of its water quality, and just avoiding all sorts of issues, having that loop is a really good thing. So they're gonna have.
Right,
really
no dead
robust
end is a good
supply.
thing, definitely.
Better for the seniors.
And I'm not trying to insult the fire chief at all, it's just my 30 years on the job.
So our final water comment is, we just like to see, they show the water line going through the site, we'd just like to see how that water line connects to the buildings, whether there's separate dedicated fire services, and where they would connect. Moving to sewer, so sewer, again, same thing, we just like something for the board to have on record that lays out that there's adequate supply, adequate capacity in the sewer system. So ideally, they take a look at where they're connecting, what its current status is, whether there are any issues known to the DPW or the sewer department, and just gives something for the board to say, yeah, okay, they've looked at this, we're confident that there's not an issue, and we can move on.
Yeah. And we have a vote from the sewer department, we'll get that to you.
Did you ever get anything from the fire department in writing?
I didn't see anything, actually.
Item 32 was just location of the pump station. They moved it to a much better location, and I think it's actually a pretty good location, so that shouldn't be a problem. At some point, this is going to be a decent-sized pump station. They currently have it shown just as a small circle. It's going to be more robust than that. It's going to have backup power. It's going to have a pretty good-sized wet well. So it's not going to be. I don't anticipate it going to be a small pump station. So probably as a decision, just as the condition of the final plan should show a bit more detail. 34, again, lays out sort of the metrics for how much flow is going to be generated. When they address item 31, that would be the kind of the foundational beginning step, is the project is going to generate this much, it's connecting to a sewer this size, at this slope, that has a capacity of this, currently it's operating at 10% capacity. This will only be another 3% of that. It's very easy to do, but it gives you guys a good basis for saying, yeah, we looked at sewer, they present a compelling argument that it's not going to be a problem.
So both the joint water works and the sewer department run a model that's required now over here, so that when we get the vote, they run their own model.
Okay.
And then that's how they determine it before they vote on it. So both departments run their own model, they don't rely on our numbers anymore.
Based on what? So do you provide them information, or do they do it on their own?
They do
or-
it based on bedrooms and
And do they provide the board a letter? So what goes in essentially what goes in the file for them?
so I can't speak to the sewer department, but on the water department, they have a model, they keep it in their own file, I think we can request it whenever they do it.
Yeah.
As far as the sewer department, I'm not sure if they provide that detail over, but,
And I'm not anticipating that there's gonna be a problem.
yeah. But their policy is not to vote on it until they run their model, and I gotta be honest with you.
They wouldn't be voting on
both
it.
projects I put in front of both boards, I've never seen their model.
But they wouldn't be voting on it. This is a 40B. This is the zoning board of appeals is
What's
voting
that?
on it. This is a comprehensive permit, so the zoning board of appeals steps in the shoes of them, so they wouldn't be voting on anything.
But we have, on all of these, at least that I've been involved in, I've always gone to the water and sewer departments to make sure that there's capacity, particularly
Right.
since Abington had limited capacity for over 10 years.
Right, that's what Sean's looking for.
Yeah,
But
so
there's no vote.
They voted on this project. They voted to say, they vote on every project.
Then why can't we have it? That's all we're looking for, right, is
I
documentation?
was just explaining it.
Yeah.
I wasn't
Yeah, we'll-
saying you
we'll-
couldn't have it. I
Okay.
was
We'll
just
get you the
explaining
documentation.
The methodology.
So we can have it then.
Yes, copy of the vote.
Yeah, and
whatever.
I think it would be
Let's
good
move
to
on.
have
Gotta move
not
on.
just the results of the vote, the information that.
They'll have to
Yeah.
address it.
Yeah.
So you benchmark it.
Can't.
It's based on this and this and this and.
So we'll just have a copy of it.
And it literally, I'm envisioning a page and a half, just laying out the metrics and laying out the conclusions.
And it's entirely possible you may have to ask them for it, as opposed to us
Well,
asking
Nancy?
them.
Well, did you, I mean, you said that they base it on how many bedrooms are in the site, but presumably you gave all that information to them, did you?
We did, but
Did you
trying
write
to get
to them?
something in writing out of them may be difficult for us, so you might have to ask.
All right. Presumably it's in their minutes, but at the very least, the vote would be in their minutes, which is a public document. But what I'm getting at is, did you send them anything in writing?
The week got on their agenda, and we asked for votes from both the joint waterworks and from the sewer.
It's got to be in the minutes.
So, it's late at night. Did you send them something in paper to the actual committee so that they could base their vote on it?
We sent them an executive summary of the project.
So that's probably
They were
what.
also provided the detail of the comprehensive permit as well,
Okay.
so the entire executive summary. So they knew what the project looked like.
Is this the executive summary that we got or something? Or?
Yeah.
So what I'm a bit uncomfortable with is
This
a lot of
doesn't make any
discussion, a lot of interpretation. Really, what should happen is Sean, as the engineer, who knows the water, knows the sewer, should just do a quick little summary memo that says, here's what we're proposed to do, here's what we looked at, here's why it's fine. And if we find out that during the course of his review that he popped the manhole cover and the pipe's flowing full, well, then he's gonna have to tell us that so that we know that there might be an issue. If he pops a manhole cover and the pipe's only flowing a tenth full, then there's more than enough capacity if the flows only take up another tenth. So it's really about, what I get uncomfortable with is there's a lot of discussion, but there's no clarity on what people are discussing and what people are approving.
Right.
Case in point with the fire in the hydrants. So let's just, the documentation isn't hard to do, and for the board, it's right there in the file. Sean's an engineer, he can put a stamp to it and attest to it. I can review it to make sure that what he's doing is reasonable, and then we check the box and move on.
Excellent.
Thank you.
So that was item 34. 35 was just, being that this is a comprehensive permit, to Amy's point, if there's an II fee that they're gonna pay, if there's a connection fee that needs to be agreed to, then we'd like some documentation on that, and that could be part of the same memo as well. Lighting, I think our only comment on that was that you show a lighting plan, but you don't show where it goes back to zero, right?
Yeah, and I had a response that we're still kind of working out some of the details down the end with the abutters, and the final lighting is a little bit in flux, but the ones that we have on the cut sheet has the adjustable screening, so it can be dropped to zero as part of that, but
Again, this isn't to indicate that there's an issue, it's just sort of, again, checking the box. So when we see a lighting plan, the photometrics, which is the little dots that have all the numbers on them, which are the anticipated foot candles from the lights that they're proposing, usually it goes until it shows zero. So it in effect shows the extent of the impact. Right now, their plan just shows the numbers. So just easy to say, okay, we've looked at it, there's zeros all around it. I don't think you have any people nearby that are gonna be impacted by it. I don't think it's a substantive problem, it just needs to be documented. 37. Well, this is probably key back to their discussions with the neighbors, so I'm sure that if the neighbors say they're happy, then the board will be happy. Traffic report. So we got a letter from Gill and Associates which addressed most of our issues. What we would like to do is, rather than have an adjunct to the report, that the original report gets revised, an issue, a revision date gets put on that report, and then the board just has one final report in the file, rather than a report and a bunch of supplemental information that's a little bit kind of scattered.
That's been requested, by the way. Jack was just out of town.
Yeah, so I think really the traffic was a pretty innocuous issue. I know people don't want to hear that, but it was pretty straightforward. It was just a little bit of kind of fine tuning to make sure it met the applicable standards. And I think Dylan can do that in a heartbeat. think these were just some clarifications that I think got clarified in your
Yeah, they
spreadsheet.
did,
Yeah.
It was, yeah, some paperwork issues. I
You know,
guess.
wetlands largely for just informational purposes, knowing that they're gonna get handled completely by the Conservation Commission, but I don't think there's anything in here that is foundational, needs to be resolved as a matter of this process. The snow storage we bring up here, we talked about that.
About the 219s.
Does that math work?
Which one?
Number 46?
46.
It's, the 219 is the number of spaces.
Is that acceptable?
Yeah. That's the additional one.
Right.
Yeah, and again, this is, so some of what we do is like a bookkeeping exercise. If we notice an inconsistency, as a matter of the record, it's nice to fix that inconsistency. So, although it's not the technical issue for us, it's something we notice over the course of our review, and it'd be nice to.
Was the 219 spaces the original proposed, you said that? Or was that?
The application had 198,
And now
and
we're-
the site plans had 219.
Okay.
So 198 is wrong, the application's wrong. The plans are correct.
And that's 1.5 spaces per unit.
Just
For this kind of development,
That's normal.
looking at my notes from the discussion with the chief where he had the additional hydrants, I have a notation here that he also requested that they lose 15 spaces for maneuverability. I don't remember.
That was the center.
That's a
Yeah,
separate
that was
rotation
taken
review.
care of?
That,
Okay,
yeah.
okay.
And what do you have up with the hydrants?
He had additional hydrants needed.
Oh, he did, okay.
Yeah.
All right. He did say that, good.
Yep.
All right.
I have 12 spaces.
12?
Yeah.
Close.
so is that?
I'll go with your
something-
number.
The current plan showed 219?
I believe so.
And I don't know, has there been a discussion about the appropriate number of parking spaces for this facility? Is the 1.5 their number, or is that?
I think we put in the most amount of spaces that we could, because that's generally a point of contention. So we always put in the most amount of spaces possible. We're always happy to scale it back so we can have more green space.
Yeah, so, I mean, every space that you lose, you're walking a balance between, do I have enough parking? Given this site is, it's not like anybody's gonna park on the street if they can't find a parking spot
Oh,
on the
no,
site.
no way.
You know, they're too far away. So in this case,
It'd be a rock pile.
if they have fewer parking spaces, it's less snow that they're gonna generate, and more places they can put it. So if,
Well, you brought up a good idea. Parking.
I think that Building A has to be completely reconfigured. I think it should be shifted, but we don't design the project. So,
so on that point, the 1.5 is a decent number for parking for this kind of
Okay.
facility. So there is some flexibility. And traditionally, if this were part of a larger development where their spillover would impact the neighbors, I'd want to be a little bit more sensitive to that number, but in reality, that's not going to happen. So the tenants in the, it'll be a marketing issue for them more than a practical issue for them.
I don't have anything on the number of spaces, so,
Okay.
the 1.5.
Oh, so in the general comments, because the site is taking up most of the available upland, there's not a lot of obvious places for construction staging. So they do have some pretty decent sized parking lots, so I'm comfortable that they could come up with a strategy. It would probably just be nice to have, the board knows that they have a plan for how they're gonna do that. And they're not gonna be stacking stuff in the senior center parking lot. They're not gonna be, leaving stuff at the end of the street by the two houses that are at the end of the street where there's a pretty big open area up there that they can start stacking stuff. So what we're thinking is just maybe give a little bit of guidance to the board as to how they're planning on managing construction.
Yeah, I had just, again, a little blurb in the response, but I had said similar. It's got the substantial parking area. And we'll work with the contractor to phase it and coordinate deliveries and whatnot to not disturb the neighbors. Certainly, I don't think they're gonna be staging anything out down by the end it would be inconvenient for them, so they'll be.
Yeah, it's not what we want, that's for
Right.
sure. And I imagine you can't go on to the senior center's property either, so.
And again, this would be preparation for Conservation Commission too, because that's what they're going to ask too, as part of their orders.
Yeah, and also, it helps the board visualize a little bit, probably one of the most significant impacts, which is during construction.
Right.
You know, where are the trailers gonna be? Are you gonna have trailers? Where are you planning on stockpiling materials? So just to know that there's been a little bit of thought and to create a little bit of vision so that people aren't surprised when it actually starts to go to construction that, oh, we didn't know you were gonna do that. It really could just be a quick little graphic that just does, even if it's a hand sketch, it's fine by me.
And on that same note, are we entitled to restrict sort of the activities in construction and that they're not, working late into the night?
Oh,
or
definitely.
Okay.
And weekends.
Yeah,
and,
okay.
Yep.
Well, it's generally done by noise restrictions and that sort of thing, so Board of Health controls noise.
The building department has a code over it.
You
Yeah,
guys
okay.
you guys are the comprehensive permit granting authority, so you put it in your decision.
Okay.
You take over for them.
Okay.
Item number 54, I'm not sure whether this is going to be an issue, but usually some understanding as to how much material is going to either be left taken from the site or brought to the site. So if by cut fill, they're going to be digging holes, they're going to be moving material, they're going to be degrading. Is the net result of that 100,000 yards of material that's going to leave the site? Is it a net result of that? 100,000 yards of material that's going to come into the site? If it's a huge number, then we might want to look a little bit about how do we control the movement of those materials. Do we restrict hours of it? Do we, if it's a balanced site, then we know that there's not a heavy truck traffic or truck volume outside of the normal construction season. So it would be good to have some idea as to what the net cuts and fills are.
I mean, it's definitely a fill site, so
The Bill site, you're gonna be filling a lot.
I haven't done specific numbers, but it's a fill. I mean, the roadway itself is filled, so.
So you can have a lot of trucks going in and filling.
And I think we have a bylaw that's not included in the zoning bylaw that regulates fill and that type of.
I think that was with the selectmen.
Yeah, the selectmen were issuing fill permits, correct?
Planning board now.
It's a
yeah.
planning board?
Yeah, the earth
I mean, it's a similar situation where it's not that there's a problem, it's just a matter of
We want to know.
benchmarking and having an expectation.
Is that something you can,
So Amy, in
It's,
that case, if,
Yeah, it doesn't have to be exact.
That would be a waiver.
Permit to dump required,
there's only so much fill you can bring in.
49-1.
From that.
I kind of remember like once it's over
Would that come
so
to us
many
now?
yards,
Yeah.
then planning gets involved.
It's 100 yards without receiving a permit from the Board of Selectmen
It was, but it was changed.
to the most recent, in the
Yeah.
most recent ones.
Actually, that was one of the bylaws you guys did, Andrew.
That's the only reason I remember it.
So do we maintain authority on that, or do they weigh in?
He's asking you, Amy.
Oh, I'm sorry, I was looking at the bylaw. They can weigh in. It's the planning board now? That's what I'm trying to
That's my-
find out.
That's my recollection.
Yes, you can ask for comments from them. They were sent the application package.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Yeah, they gave us a letter.
So they do have it.
And do they know that it's gonna be filled? Was it in the application that it was filled?
Probably not. I mean, we
Probably
didn't-
not, because Sean didn't know about it.
So maybe we should send them something, let them know that there will be filled.
Well,
It's the whole bridge, so.
And if they have any comments, right?
that was discussed at the meeting you weren't at.
Well, I think even the next step is, do we have an idea how much fill?
That's a good
I
question.
think we need to ask that. Right.
Yeah.
Yes,
I
definitely.
don't even see, this doesn't state who and who does it.
I have, are you on
The
49-1?
board.
I have Board of Selectmen, but I don't know if.
Oh, no, I'm in,
It
I'm
was-
sorry,
was it
I'm
the
in,
last
I'm in,
town meeting we modified?
No, when you guys did the bylaw review.
When we did the bylaw review, I thought did we change it to?
You did,
this
you
is-
changed it to planning board.
We did change it to
I'm
planning
pretty
board?
sure, yeah, I'm pretty sure. Isn't that your recollection, Nancy? Wasn't that your recollection that the planning board now has? Yeah,
It is? Okay. I must have an old version.
yeah,
Mm.
I'm pretty sure it is.
Is there any way we're gonna be able to know how much fill's gonna be used?
Calculate.
And that way they would send something to the planning board, see if they have any recommendations? I mean, does that sound correct?
Or at least comment.
But then would we be issuing the permit? Would we?
yes, you would
Or
be
the-
issuing it as part of the
Okay.
comprehensive permit. I'm assuming they're gonna need a waiver, so they're gonna have to ask for a waiver from the requirements of it.
From the planning or?
No, a
From
waiver
us.
from this board,
Okay,
for a waiver of the requirements of the bylaw.
okay, so again, we need to know how much. And if, we still want comments from the planning, to at least
Yeah.
give them the opportunity to comment on it?
You have time.
Yeah, it's just like the fire chief, it's, you know, always
Good to
been
get
sneaked
everybody's
out,
opinion.
yeah. It's just that you're the actual people who issue the permit. And that's it.
We really need to get the bond fulfilled. We need to have some idea of the amount of fill. All right,
That's
just to
good.
make it,
So what we typically ask for is, it's called a cut fill analysis. So there's a cut component, there's a fill component. So it would be nice to have, those are just relatively simple numbers to generate, so we can do that.
because then we're gonna have to give you a waiver on that too, correct? We'll have to vote on that? Amy?
So this must not be updated because this is Chapter 134 soil removal, and that's the Board of Selectmen.
That was, I remember it being in there for the select.
It was the selectmen, but it was definitely changed.
Enough to find.
Excuse me. And it says that it's only one paragraph, and it says.
Over something like 100 or something.
It's not a big number.
No, it's not a big one.
There's no number.
What do you have, this 134?
134, it says, no person shall, I hope I'm in the right town.
Soil
No, I think you're right, no, it was at one time the selectmen.
Okay.
But I
remember
think it
seeing
went to planning to keep the selectmen out of.
No person shall remove any soil or loam from the premises or from any land not in public use unless such removal is authorized by permit issued by the Board of Selectmen, except for the continued operation of the same parcel of an existing sand and gravel pit, and except when incidental to and reasonably required in connection with the construction of legal or approved use or structure or an approved subdivision. And that's it.
I was thinking they were bringing Phil
Right, fill in, that's,
Yeah,
there
that's
was another
what-
one, there's
that's-
another one for
Okay.
bringing fill in. I think it was under,
Yeah.
like, it was under trash or something.
Yeah,
Oh,
Because there is a figure,
It's
I think there is a figure.
49.1.
Yeah, there is definitely a
Okay.
figure.
There is a figure about how
So we're
much.
looking for an estimate.
And you're bringing Phil in, correct? Yes, okay, okay.
Yes, so.
and this one is still the Board of Selectmen, but it also says that it may be superseded by the rules and regulations of the planning board.
I don't think that's the most recent.
Yeah, it must not be.
And if you, the way you read it, by issuing this permit, that meets the requirement of.
Of the removal,
Yeah.
of the fill, it's pretty much the same, it's shorter, so. That's it. No person shall dump or allow to be dumped any landfill material on any premises in the town of Abington, so I am in the right town, in excess of 100 yards without a permit issued by the Board of Selectmen. So we'd have to get the most recent version.
Okay, that sounds reasonable. And estimates. And figure out if we need to do a waiver or not, right?
Mm-hmm, yes.
And then our last comment on the final page is, again, is back to the fire truck. So what we'd really like to see is a fire truck access plan that shows how the Abingtons use the ladder truck or what you guys have, but show the route that a fire truck can take to get around the site. And AutoTurn, which is the design software we use, can do that relatively straightforward.
We good with that? I believe it. Okay, open it to the floor, and one at a time, and please state your name and address. Anybody have any comments, concerns?
This might not be zoning, it might be conservation, but you're talking about bringing trucks in and out of there, but the road isn't even built to protect the wetlands yet. So how are you gonna access in and out of there without the culverts and the road being built so that you're not making any disturbances?
I would expect that's the first part of construction. So they get a permit from the Conservation Commission dictating all the rules and conditions that they're gonna have to meet in order to construct that roadway. The very first thing they're gonna have to do is either construct that roadway or strike some sort of agreement to access the site through the senior center. My recommendation that is the condition would put that a building permit wouldn't be issued until that roadway was at least partially constructed. Because I'd hate to see a construction start and that something happened, that roadway couldn't get built.
Put that in there. Is that it, ma'am?
Andrew Holt, 1009 Plymouth Street. A few questions here. So, one is, what determined the side of the road in which the sidewalk is being placed on, coming off of Plymouth Street?
The sidewalk was put so that it would be on the side of where it first hits the building.
I haven't actually reviewed the plans at all, so I guess, is it all right if I take a look?
Absolutely.
Certainly.
So it's on the, from this side, it's on the left?
Correct.
The sidewalk is on the left.
Is that a picture of it in here? This is the road right here, right? The sidewalk is where?
It's on the left-hand side, and then it moves up, and then it gets back up, so the building, the first building is all
So it's on the left.
correct.
To nowhere. But they may be someday.
Was there anything else?
Yeah, what's the roadway drainage plan coming off the street there? Are there gonna be like trench drains along the side of the road? Basically questioning prevention of any kind of water running away underneath the fence line of the properties that are there.
The roadway drainage is contained in the road by the curbing, and it's being collected by catch basins and going to drainage basins.
That's gonna extend beyond properties, the entire way, basically. So I know one side has a sidewalk, and the other side, there's gonna be a guardrail. Is there gonna be a?
Yeah, both sides of the road have curbing, though,
Okay,
that's cold in
so
it.
water won't ever be,
Right.
go straight into the basins?
Correct.
Okay. And then during the construction, are there gonna be any guards basically placed around the property lines, basically to prevent, trucks from driving over property lines or into driveways, things of that sort? Will there be roadway guards, or anything else, flags placed?
In other words, you're not driving over their property, is it gonna be, that road opening?
The driveway,
They normally do silt fence or something.
There'll be erosion controls placed around it that would delineate it, so.
And that would be what, hay and the burlap type of thing?
Silt fence or
Yeah,
whatever.
it's
it is.
usually silted, they don't do, I guess they don't like the hay bales anymore, but
Oh,
there's
no?
some sort of silt sock and a filter fabric type of thing, yeah.
Okay.
It was news to me too, but I guess it's invasive or something, but, I mean, if needed, some sort of, snow fencing or something like that could be put up as well to delineate
Cars
it.
parked right into the road.
Oh, anything else?
Yeah, the last question is there gonna be a follow-up, meeting, with drawings after the engineers are on, before construction documents are signed?
No, they do not. They only have to supply preliminary plans to this board. The construction plans will be required to be filed with the building department prior to any construction starting. The conditions, a 40B decision, will typically, one that I draft, is approximately 100 or more conditions. So we break them up into pre-construction, things like that. So pre-construction, there will be pre-construction meetings with town officials, things like that. Sean will also be on board throughout the whole thing.
There is going to be a Conservation Commission meetings on this.
Yes.
What they do, is it an ANRAD or they do a...
I think they have to do an NOI.
Right. Well, so there'll be at least one, if not many, conservation meetings, and that actually does talk about the construction, because they look at the
Yes, and
actual...
conservation will, I would assume, would also send it out for a peer review.
Yep.
So.
Yeah, what I'm mostly concerned about seeing is, if, for 1009 Plymouth Street, that's the side that the sidewalk is not proposed on, so if the guardrail and whatever structural engineering you have on board, comes up with a detail showing, how the guardrail is going to be installed.
Down there, down that end, there won't really be guardrail, because the guardrail's intended further in the site where there's a retaining, it's a fill site. That's back to natural grade up there. So at that end, it's just curbing to define the limit of the pavement, and then just back to like lumen seed sort of grassed area. It's not.
So there's no guardrail going completely through?
No, not the length of the road. The guardrails, the only intent of the guardrail is to keep people from, where the retaining wall gets higher than a couple of feet, if someone goes over, they're down into a ditch versus.
Show where the guardrail starts.
So what would prevent somebody from driving into the fence that you're bringing?
The guardrail starts up here where the retaining walls start.
Just a curb.
I'm sorry, oh, this Plymouth Street, okay, go ahead.
So, yeah, Plymouth Street's down here, so it's not, and it's a little, for me, it's easy to see where the grading is, so. So the first, 100 feet of the road, there's not really any fill or anything there, it's matched natural grades, and we get through the houses. Then the road starts coming up a little bit, so in here where we start needing retaining walls in some of this area, that's where the guardrails are.
Okay.
But, the first 100 feet of the road, it's generally level, it's 2% coming in off the street, and it matches those grades, there's no real reason for it.
So there will be no guardrails in that end?
No.
All set?
Yeah, I think he's going to comment on that.
So Glenn LaPointe, 311 Lincoln Street.
How you doing?
I had spoke to Linda and her family before on that, and it's our intention to do everything that we can do ahead of time. So what we discussed in the meeting as far as getting the landscaping done and stuff like that. I'd like to get all that stuff done with as many neighbors as I talked to before the construction even starts, just to try to make it as less intrusive as possible.
Okay.
Right, so that stuff I would like to do like ASAP.
We did ask you though if you could put the sidewalk on our side, so we could have a little more distance between our property line and your road.
Right.
It sounds like to them, listening to them, that it's not gonna get moved, and I didn't hear back from you, so that was gonna be my next question. If you look at where your road is coming in on my property, I had Glenn add a piece of driveway into my grass area, and the front end of our cars are parked there, and when you're talking about the car coming in, you're right on my property line. My fence, I only have so much grass outside my fence, so the road is gonna be right next to my fence. It's just not safe. I didn't pay over $500,000 to have a road butted right on my property. And,
I mean, if I could continue, the only other thing I want to add too is, I don't want the board, because I know somebody's already made a couple comments, both people that bought houses were told personally by me and by my brother-in-law before they bought that back land was going to be developed. I just want to make sure, we didn't know what it was going to be yet, but I just want to make sure that There's a certain way that we do business, and I just don't want anybody thinking that we just kind of decided at the last minute to do this. This was discussed personally by me at closing on both occasions, just to make sure that we weren't trying to be deceitful on it. So I do want to put that out there. I know you guys know that we're reputable, but I just want to make sure that you guys are under the impression that, this wasn't something we just stuffed in after we sold these houses. It was something that was discussed ahead of time. And my thought is, and I've talked to as many neighbors as I could about, it's important to us that this is a good project. We're in town. It's not like most 40B guys that come from wherever.
Yeah.
I mean, our livelihood is in this town. We live in this town. It's something that's important to us. We think it solves a need, and it's something that we're willing to work with. As far as any suggestions that people have, certainly willing to listen to them. And whatever landscaping, I had said I had things drawn from ourselves and came for these guys to look at. I sat with them for almost 2 hours, just kind of going over different things and different alternatives to make this as easy of a transition as possible. And I'm willing to do whatever it takes as far as that goes to make this something that you guys are comfortable with. I mean, I certainly don't want you not comfortable with it. It was never our intention to make something uncomfortable. And anything I can do in my power, and I think I can speak for my brothers and father, that's what we're looking to do. I certainly am willing to work with you in any way possible. And I
agree with everything you've said. You did tell us that you were going to develop it back there, but I was thinking more like maybe 50 apartments, not 144. I'm worried about the traffic. I'm not happy that the town won't let you have access, and it has nothing to do with you. You did try. I don't understand why you just can't leave access through the senior center. Another woman that was at this meeting said that she was abutted to their property, and she's near the power line, and she wanted to offer that land, so you'd have a wider road to go out instead of coming in between these two properties that are so close. I have my grandchildren. The woman next door has a little boy. I don't want somebody hitting or coming into my property. I don't want to hear fire engines and ambulances coming through there constantly. What's going to happen if a fire engine has to come and you have traffic coming out and they can't make that turn in? What are you going to do? Tell all them elderly people to back up their cars? Or are you going to make the fire engine sit there, or the ambulance, while these cars try to get out for you can get into that corner? You just need to look at a different area to bring a road in. That road is too thin. It's too small.
Well,
It's not
that
safe.
had nothing to do with us, though. We didn't turn them down on the road, the access road.
Oh, I
We're
know.
just
That
dealing
was
with
the
what's.
Selectmen, correct?
Yeah, we're just dealing with what we have in front of us.
I know. And my question was, when Glenn did come to the house, he said he would talk to somebody to see if the sidewalk could be put on the other side. So I would have a little more safety, whereas the other house has more lawn next to their fence. Mine is like this to the property line. And that's kind of dangerous.
And if there's a way of doing that, and I did, after you and I spoke, I did.
And I'm not saying, you know,
Sean,
No,
I'm
it's
not
not.
being
I just
hurtful
don't
or
want you to
nice.
think that, I know. And if, Sean, if there is a way to get it to cross, and you're comfortable with that, I certainly don't have a problem with that.
But why does it have to cross? It can't go all the way on one side?
I guess,
Eventually it'll have to cross because that's the sidewalk's on the side that the building's
Where the
on.
building is, so that's the one that, put it on that side, but
Right, but,
Crosswalk at the end of it?
Yeah.
isn't there a crosswalk at the end of it anyway?
To get from one building to the other. there is,
Yeah. Yeah, so,
But you asked why it would have to cross. It would have to cross to get to the building. That's why.
no, but how would that be an issue, because you already have a cross, is what I'm saying. So, I guess, I don't think having it cross would be an issue, the engineering would be an issue. Can you switch and put the sidewalk on the other side, engineering-wise?
But does that cause problems for the
Yeah,
other
like,
neighbors?
does it cause problems with the retaining wall, with, no?
Two sidewalks.
They'd only
That
be
would
2
be an
feet.
issue with
There's no
the width.
space.
I don't know if this is the way it works, but if any of you, don't come to the group, should you go down there and see what's being done? Then you can put your plans online, but when you put your feet in that mud and you walk around and see what these people are talking about, you have a better understanding. Just a suggestion.
And typically, we do independently review the site, but we don't go down as a matter of like
Yeah,
a board
we
or
don't go
anything
down.
like that.
I've been down there.
I've been down there too. But,
Yep.
Yeah. Where were we?
That might be an item that can be resolved.
So, and we're
Yeah.
open, if
Yeah.
it's something that Sean can do, we're open to it.
Does the is that tying into the existing sidewalk, though? Is that what the issue
There
is?
is no.
I thought there was a sidewalk on that,
I don't think
on
there
that
is a
road, but
existing
there
sidewalk, right?
Just on Plymouth Street?
Yeah, we had brought that up in the first
Yeah, we
meeting.
were at 1026
Oh, you're
Plymouth
right.
Street.
You're right.
Yeah, the sidewalks end probably 5, 6 houses north of where this property
And
is.
it's a
Okay.
shame that there's no sidewalks on that road
No
now.
sidewalks all the way down to the end of town.
Okay.
And it's narrow and dangerous.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay.
Anybody else? Did you want to continue on that? Are you all set, Amy?
No, they're gonna look into it.
Okay.
I'm just making a note.
All right, so let me close it to the floor and bring it back to the table, okay?
Motion to close it up for now.
No,
Thank you.
no.
All right, so,
Don't start trouble.
no, well, he's,
We sorted it out.
he's got a good point. All right, so where do we stand here now? The time, Jen.
We need to continue the meeting. There's additional information, or continue the hearing, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
There's additional information required. We need to get an extension on the 180 days.
Wait a minute, when's the 180 days run? I don't have it with me.
It's either, well,
Is it March
so-
sometime?
March 12th. It was originally February 12th, but you already gave us an extension of 30 days when you open, remember?
Yep.
So it's March 12th. I have it in my calendar. I have it for March 12th. So,
But it wouldn't-
so we would
It's
be.
over a month away.
Right, but I think we still need to get an extension. I would like to get an extension because I'm not 100% certain that it's March 12th. 'Cause I have it on 2 different dates.
How long is the appeal?
Date of file, right?
August 17th.
When was the first meeting?
That was it, based on the first meeting?
Yeah, when did we open it? Was it 9:20 that we opened it, or?
9/20.
Okay, so,
So it'll be March
The
20th.
original extension was not 30 days, we granted up to 30 days, but it was because we couldn't open the hearing within 7 days or 15 days, whatever that original, so I believe it's like March 11th is the, I will look to see when the application was dated.
it's when the public hearing is
It's the
open.
first public hearing.
So it's not the application.
Right, but I have an email on that.
That's March 19th. If it was September 20th, it's March 19th.
So this board's next meeting, would you meet first?
Second Thursday.
Second.
Thursday.
Because we're meeting next week.
So your March meeting would be March,
14th. But are you doing a special meeting for this, or are you going to have this on a regular?
No special
We're
meeting,
not
yeah.
going to mix our meetings.
So when do you want to continue this to?
What's reasonable for them to,
You want to go to the
2 weeks
first
or?
Yeah,
Monday of the
well, yeah.
month?
The
we'll
first
do
Monday?
March
first
7th?
The 7th?
Thursday.
That-
Thursday.
That's
Is that
on
enough time?
Thursday?
if it's not I'll be
Okay.
in touch.
Okay. March 7th?
Oh, busy.
Okay, I just asked Sean, and he asked me to give him a little bit of time to think about
Yeah,
it.
I mean, if it's putting hydrants all over the place, that's a relatively easy thing to do, but if it's wholesale changes to parking
Right.
and building layouts, that's a little bit different, so.
Right.
Yeah, and so, we have to talk with our
Sure.
client about that.
Right, and I think they brought up a lot of good points.
Calculations and analysis we want to see.
Yep.
Reach out to water and sewer, fire, water and sewer, right? Just name a few. They should probably bring a picture.
Probably.
So you're still looking for an extension as well?
Yeah, there's no way that you guys are gonna, I don't think you're gonna resolve everything in one next meeting. Do you think so?
No.
No.
So, we can either get an extension or we can ask again, I guess, but, I would prefer, something from the applicant, because what if the, applicant isn't ready at the next meeting and doesn't show up? So.
So we want a longer
Extension
extension.
at this point.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Of how long?
you know what, can I take this offline and get back to you?
No, because the board has to vote on the extension to allow the extension.
But the board could always vote at the next meeting.
No.
But if
The
there's
next
no,
meeting.
so here's the problem, if you're not ready for the next meeting,
Mhm.
and they're just going to continue this, then by taking a vote on an extension is testimony, they would be taking something in, and so therefore Mullen would apply, and we'd have to have every single person here, and if not, you run into a quorum issue. I mean, do you anticipate the board voting and to close the meeting, to close the hearing at the next hearing?
I don't want to preclude that possibility
But
until,
why would an extension preclude it? I mean, they don't want to drag this out. Nobody wants to drag this out.
Can we take a 5-minute recess?
yeah, let's just talk about it.
That's up to you.
Sure. Good.
We'll be right back.
You want to shut the tape off, Rich?
No.
Do you mind if at the end of this we vote to table?
No, yeah, we don't need to go, just throw it out there. No, we'll do it the next time Amy's down, finish it, yeah. Okay? We're pretty close to the end of it.
Yeah,
Less
we
than
are.
5 minutes, 30 days is fine.
All right.
Okay, so we, 30 days, and we did pick a date,
March 7th.
March 7th. Is that gonna work for everyone?
Yeah.
I'll see what I can do.
That's the next hearing, and the extension is good till when?
April 19th.
Do we need to make a motion to grant the extension?
I'm gonna have him, I'm going to have him, I'll grab something,
Where are you? Well, we can make a motion to continue at this point.
yeah.
You want-
Do you want to, you have the petition in front of you, right? Yeah. Want to make a motion to continue?
So, you want to continue
March 7th.
March 7th?
So make a motion on the petition of Abington Investments LLC, 245 Central Street, for a comprehensive permit under MGL Chapter 40P. The applicant is requesting a 30-day extension of the timeline.
Agenda.
No, I'll make a motion. to continue the hearing until the March-
So we'll-
March 7th.
Therefore, we're making a motion to continue the hearing until March 7th, 2019.
That's right, is that a public notice, maybe?
At 7 a.m. PM. Excuse me. It's a little early.
It's, yeah, a little early.
Just checking.
And a little late right now.
I've got one at 7:30 in the morning tomorrow.
I won't be.
That's late for me.
I'm sorry. So that's just gonna be for,
This is just to continue the hearing till March 7th, 7 PM.
okay.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, now, we need to vote on the the 30-day extension?
You could just to vote to accept the 30-day extension.
You're off in the 30 days?
Yes.
Okay.
Today's February
7th.
All
Make a
in favor?
motion to accept the petitioner's request for a 30-day extension.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye. And just let them
Yes.
know that there's no...
All right, and so for the members of the audience, as usual, you're not going to get any more mailing notices, so March 7th, show up, 7 PM, okay? Thank you, folks.
Thank you.
In discussion with Mr. Burbine, we're going to continue
I'll get you a copy. I'll have Nancy send me one. I'm gonna have her file it with
to a
town.
later date, next time Amy's here. We'll make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Oh, no, wait a minute.
Could you file that with, the town clerk? Yes. And then can you get it? Oh, she has one. Oh, well, that's okay. Sorry.
Well, just do that one?
It would have been a lot easier.
So sign this one?
Yeah. And then can you, make a copy and send it to me? I'll forward it to me. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, have a good one.
That came a bit ago, and somebody was gonna take care of it. This is new state.
Yeah, thanks, Sean. So,
Thank you, Sean.
it was good to see you. I know, we're done and, she issued the orders.
She did.
Yeah. She was all upset about you and the weddings.
When we find out about the.
Oh, right, yeah. So I put in something, I made it disclaimer about the headers. It's just,
So, I got some changes, we'll see.
so I had to say something like,
We'll be told when to show up.
just because a condition's under a header doesn't mean it's only for that header or something like that. But anyway, she called me
We're
in
good
an
on,
absolute panic because she had promised him
Yeah,
that
we're
she was
gonna
gonna get them
continue
till
next.
now. So I was not gonna do anything, yeah, I was not gonna do anything to
That's
stop her
right.
getting out the door.
All right, so,
Make a motion, oh, go ahead.
I'd like to make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And what she's doing is she's doing this.
I said aye. I said aye.
That was seconded by.
Oh, yeah, second.
The second by Andy. All right, I'm gonna
Make a
shut.
motion to shut the recorder.
Did you, anyone make it
And
on Monday?
I had.
To the master plan meeting?
Dennis went.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, you can watch it on TV, actually.
Okay,
I think they're having another one on March 4th.
okay.
Yeah.